guys, it's Quinlin. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. I'm bringing you guys another weekend vlog, which I'm really excited about because I actually skipped last weekend, and I actually do have a pretty big reason for it. I am actually infected with corona. So, yes, that is not ideal situation. But luckily for me, I've just had like the really barest mild symptoms, and I've honestly been just like chilling. I've obviously been isolating. I've been isolating from my family, so I've basically been in my room this whole time. I've gone outside a couple of times, and like I wear a mask through the house and I try not to touch anything. So I am taking a lot of precautions, and obviously I'm not like leaving the house, which I think is important, so I'm not like infecting other people. But basically, I got tested and I got a positive result, so we're just kind of rolling with it. But luckily, I am kind of on the other side of it, if that makes sense. Like, I've kind of crested the peak. I got tested a while ago, and so according to this guy who called me from like my county's like health department, I should be basically good by this coming Wednesday, so that's kind of exciting. I will be free from my quarantine on Wednesday, so I won't be infectious, and honestly, I'm probably not that infectious right now just because I've stopped having all of my symptoms and I'm like feeling totally normal, but just in case, we gotta make sure, so we gotta take extra precaution, and so I'll just stay in quarantine for a couple more days. But I'm really excited because I'm not gonna lie, it does feel a little bit like I'm trapped. Now that that's out of the way, there are a couple other things. First of all, I just ate this Pizookie. I'll like insert a clip of it now. And it's basically this cookie with ice cream on top. And I am so stuffed. I could not finish it. I had a big stomach when I looked at the menu and I was like, oh, I can eat a whole Pizookie. I should have ordered a mini Pizookie. I just wanted to vlog this weekend because I've missed talking about books. I've missed being in the bookish atmosphere. So today I'm actually reading A Court of Mist and Fury. I'm doing a reread, obviously, because I love this book. I think I've only read it a couple of times, maybe 2 or 3 times. Basically, I'm really excited because Siri picked it out for me to reread, and I've been wanting to reread the series for forever. If you are interested, you can check out Siri Picks My Summer TBR video. Peep that. Yeah, so I'm just gonna take you along. My day is not gonna be exciting, so it's mostly gonna be just me talking about books and like going through it. I'm gonna try to read as much of Akamath as I can today. Honestly, I would want to finish it, but it does feel a little bit unrealistic because it took me like 2 days to finish ACOTAR because I was being slow. And just so far this month, I've been really bummed with my reading progress. Like, I had such an ambitious TBR. If you watch the video, you'll know. And I wanted to read like so many books in 1 month, and I was like really excited, but it's already halfway through the month and I haven't really met like my halfway goal, so I'm trying to kind of pick up the pace in terms of reading and finish at least a book every 2 days, but maybe even faster than that. But Akamath is, let's see, Akamath is like 600, like over 600 pages, so it is like a chunky boy. Theoretically, like, I could finish it if I put my mind to it. It's just that, like, it's true that, like, I don't want to force myself to read because I do feel like that kind of takes away from my reading experience. I'll just read as much as I can, but basically I want to finish this by the end of the weekend, so that's the goal, and yeah. Hey guys, so it is, like, after 5 p.m., which isn't great because I haven't gotten any reading done. So I basically messed myself up because yesterday I kind of stayed up quite late, and then I had to get up early this morning for graduation, and then I was like really tired, so this morning like I took a nap, but then lunch came, so I woke up at like lunchtime. Like, well, graduation ended at like 11:30, and then I took like a nap until like maybe 12:30, but then I guess like I ate lunch, but I ended up going back to sleep. I have no idea what time it was. I'm a little disoriented right now, and oh my gosh, it was horrible, guys. Okay, so For a while I deleted TikTok because I thought, oh my gosh, it's just wasting so much of my time. But like, since I've been in quarantine and since I've kind of had not a lot to do, I re-downloaded TikTok, and now I can't get those stupid like chav songs out of my head, like the ones that are like the British girl like chav, like I'm just a Manchester girl, like, but with that like accent. And then I like kept like going in and out of sleep, and like my mind was just like on the chav girl songs, and it was kind of almost nightmarish, like kind of scary. But I finally roused myself, so I'm gonna try to read, and then hopefully tonight I'll get to bed at like a reasonable time. I'm thinking I might not be able to finish A Court of Mist and Fury, but okay, theoretically if I read for like the next 6 hours, it'll be like 11, and that's not a terrible time to go to sleep. So I just don't want to go to sleep too late because I'm a little bit worried about like permanently messing up my sleep schedule, and I think that's not it. I like being awake when there's like daylight and being asleep when there's not daylight. I think it's just nice, but yeah. Also, something fun that came in the mail is a Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. I know it's super late to get this book, but my dad actually ordered it. I was kind of planning on listening to it on audio, but my dad actually got this book for my brother, and then it was sitting on the dining room table for forever. So I decided to just snag it up because I was like, if he's not going to read it, I will. Even if I'm not reading it right now, I don't want to just like leave it on the dining room table. So that's kind of fun. I've kind of not heard too many great things about it, so I'm a little hesitant to like jump into reading it and like skip my entire TBR for it, but I will get around to reading it eventually for sure. Hey guys, so I just showered, which is why my hair is wet. It is Sunday, so happy Sunday. I honestly don't know where my time is going. I feel a bit like confused because I do feel like my time just kind of ran out yesterday, and I ended up only getting to page 179 of A Court of Mist and Fury. The goal today is to finish it for sure. Hey guys, so it is already 4:30 and I am not very far into A Court of Mist and Fury. I'm only like 230 pages in, so I do need to kind of get on that. But first, something hype is that Grace Valdez commented and asked to see kind of what books I own. So I'm going to give you kind of like a bookshelf tour, kind of not, kind of a book recommendation, kind of not. Basically, I also have this video coming out this Friday actually, which is kind of hype, and it is underrated book recommendations. So these are books that I personally maybe haven't heard a lot of, but in the meantime, I'll go ahead and supplement you guys and talk about some books that I think are maybe talked about or that I bought and I haven't read that I'm interested in reading. So we'll go ahead. I'll start at the top shelf. I was gonna film it like this, but then I kind of felt like I would rather just like stand here and talk about it. I obviously would recommend, first of all, like some authors. Sarah J. Maas, Leigh Bardugo, Cassandra Clare are just like some pretty big authors, and I'm not really going to go into their books because I feel like everybody knows about them and everybody's kind of talked about them. But I have This Savage Song by Victoria Schwab. She's also a really great author, a good recommendation. I actually haven't read this book. I definitely should, and I will. This, my friend actually read it and said that it was like a pretty good book, but probably not like a favorite. So I have a feeling this is going to be good, but maybe not like amazing. Next is Red Rising by Pierce Brown, and I think this is like a decently popular series in terms of like the sci-fi world. It is this fun sci-fi series. It is about like a rebellion, so basically there's these classes and they're all kind of genetically different from each other, and it's in space, so there's like lots of different planets. And it's very politically heavy, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. The language is a little bit hard to get used to because they use like slang words that you're not used to. I thought it was a really fun series, but I don't think it's to everyone's taste for sure. The next book that I have is The Princess Diaries by Carrie Fisher, and I only got partway through this book. This is basically Carrie Fisher's autobiography. She played Princess Leia, if you don't know who she is. And so she's obviously kind of iconic. I read this book, I got a little bit tired of it. I think in the middle, I just think I'm not huge on like autobiographies, but I did think her life was interesting, and I think definitely if you're interested in Carrie Fisher, I would pick it up. Then I have This Mortal Coil by Emily Suvada, and I actually talk about this in my underrated book recommendation, so I'm not going to talk about it now, but I would recommend this book. Just stay tuned until Friday. I promise it's coming really soon, and if you can hang on that long, then I'll talk about it, and you can see if it sounds like something you'd be interested in. Next, I have The Afterlife of Holly Chase, which I started but didn't finish. I couldn't get into it in the beginning. I'll probably read it eventually because I hate not finishing books. For some reason, the writing style just seemed a little bit childish to me, but I do know, if you know Emma books, this is one of her favorites, so that's why I originally picked it up. Next is Replica by Lauren Oliver, and I actually haven't read this book, but it seems really interesting because I think you can read it from the front and it's like one person's story, and then you read it from the back and it's a different person's story. Like there's two people's story, and it's like, I don't know, that just seems kind of cool. Next, I have Recipe for a Perfect Wife, which I've talked about all on this channel, which I didn't like, so I wouldn't recommend. Up here, I have The Hate U Give, which I would recommend. I never finished the book, but I thought the movie was really powerful, especially in this climate. Basically, this young black man gets shot and he's unarmed, and then it sparks a bunch of protests and stuff like that, and it's about this girl who actually witnessed the murder happen, but she is kind of told to like keep it under wraps, and she goes to this all-white school, so there's kind of a lot of stuff going on. I love this book. This is such a good romance book. Smoke in the Sun, I haven't read it, but I've heard it's like a Mulan reinterpretation, and so I'm really excited to read this eventually, and it sounds really good. Pride and Prejudice, love this. I've gushed about it in my mid-year book freakout tag. Then Party Shoes, this is like a book I read forever ago, so I don't know if it would be good for like an older audience at now. It's a children's book. Next is Da Vinci Code. This is such a fun book, especially if you're into like art and culture and stuff like that. I would definitely recommend it. The Shadow Queen I haven't read, but I believe it's a Snow White reinterpretation. Actually, okay, so after looking at it for a little bit, it turns out I actually have read The Shadow Queen, and I'm 90% sure I read it, and I guess it just wasn't super memorable, so that might tell you something about the story, but I think I remember having fun while reading it. The Honey Don't List, haven't read it yet, but it seems like a fun romance. 10 Things I Can See From Here, I think it's like a mental health book, but I haven't read it yet. Yeah, it features a girl who has anxiety, so if you're kind of like into more mental health, but I don't know, it could be triggering for some people, so keep your mind out. I haven't read it, so I can't tell you if it's that good. Our Own Private Universe, I think this is about like a bi girl. She goes to like Mexico, I think, and like has like a romance with a girl. I think I started it, but I didn't get very far because I don't remember loving it, but I'll definitely try to read it again. The Sun Is Also a Star. I actually haven't read this. I know this is super famous, so I probably should get on it. Illuminate, I love Illuminate. This is a fun sci-fi book. It is not to everyone's taste though, because it's told through like letters and like communications on board like a ship, so it takes place in space. And I do think some people struggle with that format. I know I did at first, but I ended up really liking the story, and I felt like you still got to know the characters. Furthermore, by Tahiri Mafi, this is such a fun book. It gives me more kind of middle grade vibes, but it's just like a fun journey. It's very whimsical. It's very like Alice in Wonderland kind of. 7 Days of You, again, this is like a romance book, but I have not gotten around to it. Geekerella, this is like a fun kind of silly story. It's obviously Cinderella. Then A Beautiful Work in Progress by someone Valerio. That's like an autobiography again. I think it's about like a plus size black woman who is like big on like running like ultra marathons, which are like more than a normal marathon. I know that's crazy. Basically, she's not like traditionally like in shape. She's not like skinny, and so I think she's faced a lot of criticism and obviously like hate from people. Haven't read it, but my mom gave it to me. And then The Smoke Thieves, which I talk about again in my underrated books. So we move to the next shelf. Dissonance I talked about in my underrated books video. There's obviously the Harry Potter series. Assassin's Blade is up here. Then The Princess and the Fangirl is the sequel to Geekerella, which I haven't gotten around to reading yet, but I'm excited to. Gemini is the sequel to Illuminae. Billy and Me, I haven't read it, but it seems kind of like just like a sweet romance kind of, and it takes place in like a small town or whatever. Bitter Blue, oh, this is a good one. I talk about one of the companion books to Bitter Blue, which is called Fire by Christian Cashore, and so I'll go into that in my underrated books video, I'm pretty sure, but this is a good series. Julia Vanishes, I talk about this one in my underrated classic, or my, I keep wanting to say underrated classics, but my underrated books, I'm pretty sure. Ink, Iron, and Glass, haven't read it, but it looks really interesting. They both die at the end. This one's pretty popular. It's just about like these two people, and basically like you get an alert 24 hours before you're supposed to die, and then there's this app that will pair you up with people who are also about to die. So it's like two people and they're about to die. So they both die at the end. Yes. But I haven't read it yet, so I can't say if it's good or not. But I've heard a lot of good things. Kinda Rich Girlfriend, this is I think it's the sequel to Crazy Rich Asians. I loved Crazy Rich Asians, the book. If you've watched the movie, definitely, you know it's a good time. Every Patient Tells a Story. I read this. This is in my March wrap-up, I believe. This is like not exactly a sequel, but kind of a companion book to Furthermore. Everything, didn't end up liking it. This is so like unprofessional. I sincerely apologize. Love and Gelato, this is a fun book. It reminded me kind of Anna and the French Kiss because it's about this girl who goes to Italy, but I didn't like it as much. I thought it was kind of more sad and less romantic. Again, But Better by Christine Rocio, but she's a YouTuber. She's Poland Banana Books, so I think a lot of people on BookTube already know about this book, but it's basically like a study abroad story. I thought it was good, but not amazing. Popular, I talk about this in my underrated books video, so I'm not going to go into it. And then these two are sequels to books I already talked about. Let's go down here. Okay, this is taking forever. I apologize. I'm going to get down here. Woo! So, first of all, Something in Between. This is a romance. Pole / The Thunderhead. This is part of the Scythe series. That is such a good series. I would highly, highly recommend. It's a sci-fi series. I did talk about it in my mid-year freakout tag. But basically, it's about this place where people don't die anymore. It's basically in this futuristic world where we've kind of advanced past death. But in order to keep the population controlled, there are these scythes, and they basically go around killing people. It follows two apprentices of a scythe. Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. I think this is a pretty popular book. Windfall is about like this dude who like wins the lottery from his friend buying him a ticket, but then I think he like kind of lets it get to his head. I haven't read it yet, but I really want to. Perks of Being a Wallflower. I think everyone, it's like basically like a modern classic, right? Like everyone should basically read it. It's Isla and the Happily Ever After. This is like the third book in kind of the Anna and the French Kiss series. Not as good as the original though. Eliza and Her Monsters. This is basically like Fangirl, except she draws like a webcomic, and I liked Fangirl better. But Eliza and Her Monsters is good, especially if you like Fangirl. Definitely read Eliza and Her Monsters. Rich People Problems, that's Crazy Rich Asians. A Court of Rings and Ruin. The Dark Vault, I think this, I don't know if this is a new series or, yeah, I think it is. It's separate from the Savage Song, but it's also by Victoria Schwab. I haven't read it yet. Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, such a good book. You guys should definitely read it. I just thought this was such a fun book. Like, I could not put it down. Kind of Midnight, obviously. Ember in the Ashes. I think this is, like, really famous, but I haven't actually read it yet, which is kind of a shame. Lola and The Boy Next Door. This is the same series. Rainbow World, Carry On. This is the fan fiction that she writes in Fangirl. Like, this is the fan fiction. But it's basically like a Harry Potter, but if Harry Potter were gay kind of story. Ever After, The First Life is the first book in the series. And basically, First Life is like this world where you have a second life, and that's where, like, once you die on Earth, there's like actually like an afterlife, but it's like where your soul lives, and it's like more important because that's where you like live forever. And they're like two places, but they're like warring against each other, and they're like basically like companies kind of, and they're very different from each other, but you kind of choose one. And then there's one girl she hasn't chosen, so they send like two guys who are like really hot or something to convince her like which one to choose. I remember thinking it was so stupid but so fun, so kind of would recommend that series. Yeah, First Life. I haven't finished it yet. I haven't read this one, but I will. Ready Player One. This is really good. It is kind of popular because there's also a movie now. The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. I bought this book because it was going to be our school play and I was thinking about doing it, but I ended up not reading it. When Dimple Met Rishi, this is like a fun, cutesy book. It's about like this girl who is going to school for like engineering, but her parents really want her to get married, and it's like a big deal for them, so they have this like arranged kind of setup marriage. And then so Rishi is like the love interest, and he's just like super excited. He like wants to get married so bad, and he kind of like follows her to this like camp, and they like meet, and at first she's like, no way, and then of course, you know, I didn't love it, but I thought it was like pretty good. Then finally Crazy Rich Asians, which I've already talked about, which is good. Definitely recommend, definitely recommend. First is Warcross by Marie Lu. I think this got a bit of hype a while ago. Queen of Hearts, I don't think I read this book, but it's basically like an Alice in Wonderland kind of from the Queen's perspective. A Darker Shade of Magic is really good. I only ever read the first book, but it's a good series basically where there's like different Londons, and that's kind of cool, and there's like magic in certain Londons but not in our London, which is Grey London, and there is one guy who can like transport between Londons. We have Educated, which I talked about in my underrated books, so I'm gonna let you hear about that in that book video. God's Grave, which is part of the Nevernight series, which I think got a lot of hype, and it's definitely only for some people. I think the writing style is kind of a lot at points, and it's definitely kind of like bloody and stuff like that. The Family Tooth by Alice Avery. This is actually a book by a friend of my mom's. She was a friend of my mom's, and it's kind of an autobiography, I believe. Sadly, she did pass away recently. Then To All the Boys I Loved Before, obviously, I think everybody knows what that's about, so I'm not gonna go into it. The Diabolic is like about this like girl who's like kind of a robot, and she like is supposed to not have emotions, and she basically is there to protect this daughter. It also takes place in like space. Invictus is a book about time travel. I haven't read it yet. Heart of Thorns, haven't read it yet either, but it looks kind of good. Ferris is part of Lunar Chronicles, which were really popular like kind of a while ago. Definitely recommend if you haven't read them. They're basically all fairy tale retellings. Two Dark Reigns is the sequel to Three Dark Crowns, I believe, and it's basically about these three sisters, and each of them has like a different set of powers, and they're all vying for the throne because only one can live. I thought it was a really fun series. I really enjoyed it. Definitely recommend. And then Love Boat Taipei, I would also recommend. It was like a romance novel, and it was fun, but I didn't love it, but it was fun. Okay, now I'm gonna go from behind the camera. This is my basically Cassandra Clare kind of collection. Obsidio is the third book in the Illuminae kind of trilogy. I have all this Cassandra Clare, which everybody knows about, so I'm not going to go into. This is where it ends. This is about like a school shooting. I haven't read it yet, but it's supposed to be powerful. I don't know. Lady Midnight, Crooked Kingdoms, A Court of Four, blah, blah, blah. 1,000th Floor is about like this building in, I believe, New York. And In the Mist, I did read this actually, and this one I think is also like a Mulan retelling. It might actually, The Smoke and the Sun might actually be the second book in it, and I read this one, so I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it. I just thought there was not as much action as I expected in a Mulan retelling. Then Caraval is about this, like, carnival, basically. My friend said it's really good, and she read it, but I haven't read it yet. Heartless, I absolutely loved. It is an Alice in Wonderland retelling about kind of the origin story of the Queen of Hearts. Definitely underrated. Then Suspicious Minds is a Stranger Things book. So next we move over to my ugly bookshelf, and we'll start at the top. These are all books I haven't read. So I have all of these. I'll just kind of pause on them because I don't want to go into too much detail. I think I've taken up way too much time already. Basically, these three are book of the months. The Last Flight is a thriller. One to Watch is a romance. Big Friendship is a nonfiction about female friendship. The Lovely War is about World War II, but it's told from Aphrodite's perspective. The Last Nude by Alice Avery, the same friend of my mom's. And it's about like 1927 Paris. My mom recommended it because she knew I liked the Paris hours. Summer of '69, Shortfall and Foundryside are a series. Burn is about 1950s McCarthyism, but there's also dragons. Gilded Wolves is a heist story. Reaper in the Gates is the third book of the Inner Ashes. The Paris Seamstress is about World War II again. 7 Ages of Paris is a nonfiction about Paris. And The Ballad of Tom Merchant's Prey is pretty obvious. Then this is the Farseer trilogy, which I've heard good things about, and that's my Rice Krispie pack. Then we have My Dark Vanessa, which I've heard good things about. It's basically about like a girl who finds out that realizes that a relationship she had with the teacher may not have been like as perfect as it seemed. Young Elites, I didn't like it personally. Our Dark Duet is a sequel to a book I already talked about. Wonder Woman Warbringer, that was fun. It's not as good as the Wonder Woman movie, but it was still fun. I enjoyed it. Then Fairyborn, I liked. It's like takes place like 1,000 years apart. There's like 2 different stories going on, which I thought was kind of cool. And then there's these books. Sorry guys, I'm kind of running out of steam, so I'm just going to try to kind of quickly go through all of these. I'll just let you take a look. This is part of the Red Queen series. Then Fire I talk about in my underrated book series. Next I have all of these. That's The Serpent and the Dove, which is kind of covered up. And then Lifelike, which I didn't love just because of the writing style. Serpent and the Dove looks good though. I really want to read it. Book Thief you should definitely read. King of Stars is another Laybird. Dugo one. Graceling is the bitter blue thing that I was talking about. Crown's Game is actually good. I think it's probably not as talked about. It is basically takes place in like ancient Russia. Or not like ancient Russia, but like Russia in the time of the Tsars. But there's like 2 people who are like basically court kind of magician people. And they're very powerful. I forget exactly what they're called, but they're called kind of something special, like, and they have magical powers basically, but they're both vying to be the one person who will be like at the Tsar's side, and the other one has to die. So, you know, kind of high stakes. Ooh, My Plain Jane, that's a good one. It's basically a Jane Eyre retelling. I haven't read Jane Eyre yet, but I will. All the Bright Places is pretty sad, but it's like a modern kind of romance, contemporary romance. Rebel in the Sands I haven't read. Mistborn I haven't read, but I should. First Life is the one I was talking about, which you should read. Then Girls Made of Stone and Glass. That was a good one. It's another like Snow White retelling, but I thought it was like more inventive and better. Now I Rise is the sequel to... Oh, it's the sequel to And I Darken. And I Darken is basically a Vlad the Impaler retelling, but if Vlad the Impaler were a girl, so gender bent. Ash Princess looks good, but I haven't read it. Map of Days, you guys should definitely read The Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children if you haven't. It is a really good series. The Darkest Minds, I enjoyed the first book. By the end, I got into the characters, but it was kind of hard to get into, and I couldn't get into the rest of the book, so I gave them away. There Will Come a Darkness. I forget what that's about, but I must have thought it was interesting at one point. So, like, all of these books are books that I probably thought were interesting, but I'll tell you if I thought kind of otherwise. A Fire and Stars is a good one. It's a romance, a female-female romance. Then My Lady Jane is another, it's by the same authors as My Plain Jane, but it's about this... It's like a magical retelling of this historical queen who got her head chopped off after 9 days of being queen. But it is a story if she did not. Imagine if she did not. Catwoman was so good. I love Sarah J. Maas. Then down here, we have all of these bad boys. I'm really excited for the Inheritance trilogy. And that is all, my friends. That is all. So that took the life out of me. I am now kind of exhausted. I did not anticipate how much time and energy it would take. But I hope you guys kind of enjoyed. Hopefully this gave you an idea of what books I own, and if you're interested, you can check out any of the books. If you want me to go into literally, you can pause the book, like the video at each shelf, and like scan it, and comment down below if you guys like want me to go into more detail about a certain book. I will reply to your comment, of course. But I will also maybe even make like more, talk about it more in a video if you guys are interested. But if you guys want to know anything more about like any specific book, or if you want me to read a book that I haven't read yet and like tell you if it's good or not, then I will do it for sure, because your girl does not have a lot of subscribers, but I am still here to please y'all. I do love my little YouTube life. Hey guys, so it is almost midnight, so I thought I would go ahead and end the vlog here and wrap things up. So I'm only like 300 pages into A Court of Mist and Fury, which is not great. so I have to admit I did not get the reading in that I really wanted to get in. Oh no. But it was for an exciting reason. So basically, I don't know if I talked about this. I might have mentioned it earlier in the video. If you don't know, my college is going online in the fall. However, I just confirmed I'm getting roommates to go to California with. I am so excited. I still need to figure out some of the details, but basically I'm not going to be here all fall, which is kind of hype. So at least I'll have some college experience, even if it's not like the traditional college experience. I am so excited. We just FaceTimed for like 3 hours. It was crazy. I love them so much. They're so cool. They might even be watching because I actually told them on my YouTube channel. Lol. But yeah, basically I'm really excited, and so that's why I didn't get a lot of reading done today, but in general, today was a good day. Basically, this is just me ending the vlog saying thank you so much for watching. I know the bookshelf tour probably took a long time, so I do apologize, but hopefully that was some fun content to mix it up for you guys. Anyways, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and bye!